Hingað komin Michael Hudson, hann prófessor frá Bandaríkjunum, var ráðgjafi á Wall Street. Ég ætla að taka fram að þetta viðtal sem sagt ekki með texta, en það verður textað og sett á netið með textað fljótt á eftir og verður líka textað í endursýningu þáttarins í kvöld. Þannig að þeir sem ekki skilja allt, þeir geta notið þess. Michael, welcome to Silfur Egils. You wrote an article in Fréttablaðið yesterday. You said that Iceland was under attack. Is Iceland under attack, and by whom?
Well, it's under financial attack, not military attack. And the objective is exactly the same. The objective is to get control of your resources, your natural resources, your money. And it's as if paying foreign debt is very much like paying foreign tribute. But without the cost of a military overhead or an occupation. The difference is that a country may not realize it's under attack. It may think it's at peace. It may think this is the normal way of doing business. But what's happened to Iceland in the last 10 years is not the normal way of doing business at all. And the European community and international banks have acted in a predatory way towards Iceland. They have tried to extract as much revenue as they can, and they found out that doing it financially is the easiest way to get control of a country, much easier than the cost of military invasion, in which case people really fight back. But Iceland hasn't been fighting back against the financial attack.
But you say that Iceland should fight back.
Well, I think it's right for any country to get control of its resources. No country should let itself essentially be looted. Every country should try to use the financial system to grow and to raise the living standards. And instead, there's no way that living standards can rise now. There's no way that Iceland can go forward when it has to pay this heavy tribute of interest and debts that are way, way beyond its ability to pay.
So in your view, what happened in Iceland in the last years?
They fell for they believed that neoliberal economics, which is really pro-financial economics, they believed that the way to get rich was to run into debt. And no country in history has ever believed that. Everyone's always tried to stay out of debt, and Iceland thought that if it could borrow and run into debt and somehow hope that it could use this to invest in assets that would go up in price, it would come out ahead. And so it bet the whole country. And any textbook on how to manage an economy or how to manage a company starts. The very first rule is never take a risk that puts the whole company at risk of loss. And they took a risk that violates every economic textbook.
And who did this?
I don't know, because I'm not here in Iceland. Obviously, the Icelandic bankers did. The people in charge of committing Iceland to pay foreign debts made the decision to pay without any calculation of how they were ever going to pay. I don't believe that anyone could have looked at Iceland's situation and said, if things go wrong, here's how we're going to pay. We're going to have to sell off all of our natural resources. Half the homeowners are going to have to lose their homes, and the creditors are going to have to end up with all the assets, and we lose everything. I don't think anybody made that calculation.
No. But do you think that Iceland should not pay its debt?
Well, the good news is what Adam Smith said many years ago. No country in history ever has paid its debts. So it's inevitable that the debts won't be paid. I don't think they should be paid, but the starting point is that they can't be paid. There's simply no way that these debts can be paid off. And so the question is, how are they not going to be paid? And there are two ways. Either they can stretch out, they can fail to realize they can't be paid. You'll stretch it out as long as possible, which is what the creditors want, until you've already sold off your natural resources. You've already privatized your public domain and sold it off. You've already foreclosed on homes. And then at the very end of losing everything, then you realize you can't pay. Or at the very beginning, you make a calculation and say to the creditors who owe you money, tell us how we're supposed to pay under the normal course of doing business. And it'll be very clear that they can't pay. Now, the creditors are trying to pressure Iceland very quickly. They're like a high-pressure salesman. They're saying, make a decision quickly that you're going to pay us. and then they stretch it out. So they're saying, make it quickly before you calculate how much you owe, before you calculate what the cost of paying will be, and most of all, before you ask the banks whether they've behaved in a crooked, immoral, and actually illegal way.
But it's, you said that the system is a paradise for the creditors. It's
for the short term, it is. It is.
It favors the creditors.
Well, and that's what's unique about Iceland. Usually, in every business cycle, there's a build-up, and then there's a crash. And the advantage of the crash is it wipes out the bad debts, and the business upswing can take place once the economy is free of debts. But in this case, Iceland is not being free of debts, and in fact, it can't even inflate its way out of debt because you have the debts indexed to the rate of inflation, but not wages. So there's a debt squeeze, and that's called debt deflation. The whole, the normal circular flow between production and consumption is being interrupted by creditors taking out, extracting so much money that the economy shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. And that's why the debts can't be paid. Shrinking doesn't help you pay the debts. It makes you even more dependent. So the kind of austerity program that the International Monetary Fund is telling Iceland to do to pay won't work. It's going to make things worse and worse.
So the IMF is giving us the wrong advice.
That's their job. That's what they've been doing for the last 50 years.
But they're basically running the country. No.
What?
They are basically running the country now.
Yes, that's because they believe in a free market. And a free market believes in centralized planning, total control, but not by democratically elected people. The planning, it moves out of the hands of democratically elected government into the hands of bankers, mainly foreign bankers. So the government, in effect, has been turned over to the foreign bankers to run Iceland for their benefit, not for the benefit of the people. And that goes against every democratic tradition of Western Europe.
Should we kick out the IMF then?
Not only kick it out, but I'd say withdraw from it. Look at what they've done to Latin America. Look at the history of what they've done to every single country. Last Thursday in the Ukraine, there was a riot in Parliament when the Eastern Ukraine, the party of the regions, said we're not going to submit to economic shrinkage. The IMF tells us to raise the unemployment rate, lower the wages, and if we do that, people are going to vote to join Russia again. And there was a riot, and they refused to join the IMF. A year ago, the IMF did not have a single customer left in the world once Turkey paid its loans. No country in the world wanted to submit to shrinkage, to lower wages, to higher taxes, and higher payment to foreigners. Everyone rejected it. So when the G20 meetings last week gave $1 trillion for the IMF, that's saying the creditor nations in Europe is saying to the debtor countries, drop dead.